Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. So, the Soviet Union has never ceased to exist legally. So, some people say that the collapse, so-called, of the Soviet Union, which was a collapse, was not legally completed, done, but it was a coup. Well, I'm 100% in agreement with that statement, which the Soviet Union was destroyed by traitors from within, helped by outside interests, economic, financial interests. That's how it happened, I think. It was not like the communists decide overnight in the whole Eastern Europe, man, you know what? Capitalism is better than communism all of a sudden. And hey, we should do what those guys are doing. All of them overnight. In what? A span of about 2 years? 1 year? I don't think so. Anyway, I have the evidence. I don't have to go over that. The point is this. Some people say Soviet Union is still legally there as a country. And that the so-called agreement between Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia to say, okay, we're going to break Soviet Union and Belarus goes over here, Ukraine here, and Russia here, was actually illegally completed. So if you have heard that it just Soviet Union agreed to disintegrate, no, it was not like that. It was orchestrated from outside. And whatever these guys signed, the three that I mentioned, is actually illegal. Why? Because the three guys that meant to sign the dissolution did not have the authority to do that. Legal authority. That means the document signed for the dissolution of Soviet Union is not legal. Well, I don't want to go deeper into that, but I have here an article coming from New Voice of Ukraine and explains exactly that. After I read this little 2 or 3 paragraphs in this article from New Voice of Ukraine, from an Institute for the Study of War, scientific, non-profit, Washington, D.C. think tank with connections with Victoria Nuland. All right, you understand what I'm talking about. I will explain how it was taken over, how Russia in this case, and I will give Romania as an example as well, I lived through it, were taken over by outside interests using people inside, within Russia and Romania in order to take over certain kind of, let's say, natural resources like oil, gas, and coal, and so on. So let's start with the article and see if Soviet Union is still there legally. Never disintegrated. According to these guys, some in Russia. New Voice of Ukraine. This is from May 23rd, 2025. Moscow floats, and I'm quoting, illegal USSR breakup to justify new territorial claims. Institute for the Study of War. These guys should not be trusted, just so you know. What I take out of it is some evidence, not their conclusions, okay? Their conclusions is this right here, which these are garbage, just so you know from the get-go. Where you have Victoria Nuland, Miss Kimberly Kagan, and the other Kagans. Thank you very much. Look into Kaganovich in Russia. That would help you understand who were the commissars in Soviet Union. Moscow intensified its long-standing narrative about illegitimacy of Soviet Union dissolution, doubting Ukraine's sovereignty in an effort to derail any future peace deal. I think this is a garbage statement right there. Russia does not want to create Soviet Union, I think. But hey, what do I know? Institute for the Study of War analysts, not propagandists, noted that Russian authorities are reviving assertions that the Soviet Union never legally ceased to exist. Interesting. Now, the guys from the Institute for the Study of War were the ones that were kicked out by Putin from 2000 to 2006. Remember that. So they have a dog in this fight. All right? Victoria Nuland's parents are from that area. Remember. Likely with the intent to deny the sovereign. Likely. How do you like that? I likely win the Nobel Prize. Did I win it? No. Deny the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine and Belarus in the future. This is an assertion. Okay. They point to a recent statement by Nina Ostanina, head of the Russian State Duma's Family Protection Committee and member of the Communist Party's Central Committee. On May 22nd, she claimed that Duma deputies are prepared to raise the issue of the, and I'm quoting, possible illegality of the USSR's dissolution. Ostanina echoed the remarks made the day prior by Anton Kobyakov, a Kremlin advisor, who asserted that the Soviet Union still legally exists because the founding body, the Congress of People's Deputies, was not involved in its dissolution. So that means the Congress People's Deputies, they had the authorities, the only authorities they have to do this. But they didn't. So the founding body, and then they say this, Ostanina also claimed that the breakup of the USSR was illegal because the leaders who signed the Belovezh Accords in December 1991, Belarusian parliamentary speaker. So you had a guy who's the speaker of the parliament in Belarus, Stanislav Shushkevich, Russian President Boris Yeltsin, and Ukrainian President Leonid Kravchuk were never granted the authority to do so. The Belovezh Accords internationally recognized, formalized the USSR dissolution by its founding republics. Got it? So that means that they recognized it, obviously, because it worked in their interest, but they were not actually the guys who had the authority. Now, ISW underscored that Russian leadership has consistently pushed false narratives about the, and I'm quoting, illegitimacy of the USSR's collapse and has called for its restoration, especially since 2014. All right, so what do you think, my friends? Well, let's put it this way. Everything could be solved like this. If they say, actually, it was not legal. It was just a coup d'etat. Would anything change? It was a revolution. And then recognized. Why? I give you the example of Ukraine. In 2014, a coup d'etat, a bloody one, occurred in Ukraine. Ukraine had a democratically elected, legitimate, legal government recognized in the United Nations. Then we had some traitors, that's how we call people within the country, Ukrainians, who are paid or helped by foreign agencies to overthrow the legitimate government. They're called traitors. I mean, if you don't call them traitors, imagine that the United States of America will have a bunch of people with the help of China or Russia overthrow the US government. See how that would play. It will be traitors doing that. Okay, so if you agree, and they were recognized immediately. The next day, the free world with democracies recognized the illegal coup, the bloody coup. People died over there, of a legitimate, democratically elected government. Why? Because they didn't like democracy, the outcome of democracy. All right, Mr. Viktor Yanukovych, then president of Ukraine, fled to Russia after he agreed to hold elections. The guys conducted a coup d'etat and so on. So, if you recognize that as a revolution, they can say, okay, man, it was not legitimate. Those three guys that signed, not legitimate. It was just a revolution. They took over. That's it. They broke up Russia, Soviet Union. That's it. Just to change the terms. And then that's the end of the story. The thing is this. Who's crying about it? Who's afraid about it? Who's afraid that Soviet Union will come back? Well, I personally don't give a shit. Just so you know, if they come, the only thing I give up is if the communist ideology will take over and if the guys who were riding high during the 1918 to about 1953 Soviet Union are coming back. The same guys who were in charge of Soviet Union were in charge of Russia from 1991 to about 2006. I will explain. In 1991, no, let's start over. In 1918, people like Trotsky, Mr. Bronstein, people like Mr. Ulyanov, non-Russian, Trotsky, non-Russian, Jew, not Jewish anyway, however you want to consider them, all right? Then you have Ulyanov. Ulyanov Mr. Lenin was Russian, maybe 25%. Then you have Stalin. He was a Georgian guy, a Gruzin. He was not Russian. I mean, people say, well, he felt Russian. Well, I feel Zimbabwean. Am I Zimbabwean? Fuck no. So cut the crap. So here you have at least 3 guys. And then you have at least, then you have Goda, you have Beria, you have Kaganovich, non-Russians, if you know what I mean. Go and check them out. Find their origin, early lives, and their real names, and then you're gonna understand. Okay, they say Yogoda, Gangrich, Ogoda. Okay, so these guys were riding high until Khrushchev came after 1953. Was it what? 5th of March, 1953, when Stalin died, helped by the same group. All right, and then Khrushchev came, and the Russians kind of got into the game with Brezhnev. Antonov, was it? What's his name? Not Antonov. Antonov was the airplane. I always have a problem remembering the other president. He was not a president, but anyway, Andropov, Brezhnev, and then Mr. Gorbachev. Russians, if I remember correctly, Russians. But before that, even Khrushchev, I think, was half Ukrainian, some say. Okay, so nevertheless, then those guys that were in charge at the beginning of the Bolshevik communist revolution were phased out a little bit, pushed to the side, even though they were not. Kaganovich was still in charge. He died after the fall of the Soviet Union. Kaganovich. Go and look at Mr. Lazar Kaganovich, and then talk about Holodomor, the genocide against the Ukrainians, and put a Gruzin and they in charge. They were the ones. They're the architects. One was the guy who said, yeah, let's do this. The other guys, I would gladly do it because I hate those guys. That's what happened. That's why you put foreigners in charge of your repressive organisms, or like, let's say, institutions, FBI, CIA, police, and so on, because they will have no problem to enforce any order, bloody order the boss sends. That's what happens everywhere. In Romania, the same way. The communists, the guys in charge of Romania at that time, if you can look at them, they're also of the same stripe. They put people, not Romanians, in charge. In order, if Romanians will have a revolution or something, uprising, they will say, activate these guys who are going to give the orders to do whatever they need best. They have no allegiance to Romanians. That's what you do. Remember, that's why the Israelis have only Jews in charge of everything. They don't have any Palestinians. Diversity over there, or Iranians or Lebanese in the government. I'm talking about Mossad, defense, president, prime minister, foreign minister. They're never of anything else. Why? They don't like diversity somehow, but they like us, our diversity. All right. Nevertheless, let's go back to our ship here. So then, after 1991, after the dissolution, they came back. You know how they came back? They bought, let's say, in Romania, let's say they have a Mediană Vodar, they have all kind of, it was a petrochemical, or let's say Râmnicu Vâlcea, petrochemical big factory. I don't call it combinat petrochemic. It's a big, chemical, like I would say, easier would be a refinery. And there were refinery, I think Mediană Vodar, refinery. How do you do that? Romanian government issued little certificates of ownership to all Romanians. And I said, everything here you have this for that, right? And we're going to distribute it to the people. But then if let's say it's a company, has, let's say, 100 certificates, which I'm giving you a small, because this certificate is like $5. That was the worth of it, $5. So how do you own a company? If you buy from other people these certificates, you're going to own the company. You have a majority ownership of the company. But we didn't have the money. Who had the money? People like me, who call, let's say, Bank of New York, or Bank of Tel Aviv, or banks like that, which they call me because, and through me, I have the money, the capital, to buy that refinery and then own it for them. And I take over. How do you think Berezovsky, Abramovich, and other oligarchs, and in Ukraine the same way, took over Russia's natural resources? Exactly like that. I wanted to look of these guys' past, because in the communism, they were all the same. No money, like this. And all of a sudden, after that, some people bought with millions of dollars with money issued to the how do you call it, public officials. That's how they did. It was bribes. Public officials were bribed by these guys with the money, and they bought it at a dumping price, the, let's say, petrochemical, whatever that is, or the refinery. And then they were owned actually by other people, with other people's money, by these guys who were doing what they strangled Russia. 40% of the Russian oligarchs were what? Romanians, right? Yeah, I made a video more like 3 years ago about that one. Each and every oligarch. So go and check them out. So that's what it was. And these guys took over. And then when Putin came in 30th of December 1999, remember the 31st, when Yeltsin was like, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, all right, he took over, which I think that was another coup in Russia. Putin was not appointed. If Putin was appointed, it was appointed because Putin said, guys, we got to do something here. These guys own again our country, as they did in 1918, 1918 until 1953. Again, they own our country. They suck the blood of our country and their resources, and our people, our nation is slave nation in its own country. We got to do something. And he did. By 2006, so in 6 years, all these oligarchs went to their masters in the West. So you knew whose money were put into Russia in order to buy those resources. Got it? So those guys now, they want Putin out so they can again come in the third time. 1918 first time, 1991 the second time, and now it's going to be again. That's what they try in Ukraine, and guarantee you they will be the same owners, the same names, and the same owners. So yeah, they don't want the Soviet Union to be back. Why would they want that? Under Putin? No, they will be A-okay if that will be under, I don't know, another Bronstein. If tomorrow the president of Russia will be a Bronstein or a Kosman or I don't know, something like that, they will be A-okay with that. Everything will be fine in Russia all of a sudden, like Zelensky. Everything is fantastic in Ukraine because Zelensky Stein is in charge. And Michal Stein and Yermak Stein, when these guys are going to be back there, Russia will be again embraced to the bosom of the nations. Garbage. You have to know who's behind all this. You know who's behind all this? Money and power. And then it's a specific group, I don't know who those guys are, but you figure it out, that is trying to get as much. But somehow the same group always cries eternal victimhood. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.